Welcome in. I'm Mr. Fox. Let's just get right down to business, shall we? We're going to talk about this little thing today called creativity, and more specifically, being a creator and what creation and creating and the process of creating is all about. See, I believe creating and creativity is one of the more fundamental aspects to being a human being, to be alive, to feel alive, to be a human. For time millennia, human beings have always created, have always made things, have always created tools and artifacts and crafts and technologies, etc., etc., etc. But I think what's been lost in the creative pursuit is the juice of the creative act in and of itself. And I want to talk about that, and I also want to talk about why I feel creativity is so vital and important for our well being, our wellness, and just our everyday overall functioning. We need to be creative, and I feel deep down that we are called to be creative. So, why not now? What are we waiting for? What keeps us from creating? What keeps us from exploring our imaginative faculties? Anybody? I don't know. I don't know. I have ideas or I have thoughts. Um, I think there's a lot of things that come into play here. But one of the biggest things that I think come into play is the fact that unfortunately creativity at its baseline, at its most definitive, and at its most necessary, has been polluted. It's been distorted. It's been kind of washed over by a whole lot of malarkey, we'll call it, a whole lot of BS. Okay. Creativity is something that is unique to every single one of us. Every single one of us, from my point of view, has creativity within them. Every single one of us has something creative to offer the world. So, why is that not being nourished? Why is that not being tapped into? Well, because I think that a lot of people get that beat out of them. The world beats it out of us, or the world shames it out of us. We're so caught up in it's only good and it's only creative and it's only beautiful if it makes money, if it sells, right? It's all about that bottom line. It's all about that money. We live in a world in which everything has to be commodified, apparently, and everything needs to be monetized. And I think creativity goes way beyond that, and I don't even think that is the real nature of what creativity is about, what it's for. Now, sure, nothing wrong with making a little bit of money. I think we all can agree on that to some regard and some respects, but creativity isn't at its heart and at its roots, it's not about making money. So just because something doesn't make money and that it's not monetized or not commodified doesn't mean that it's not valuable and it's not worthwhile. And it doesn't mean that it won't affect somebody. Because all it takes is to have an impact on somebody else. And really it's more than just somebody else. It's also what impact does it have on the creator? What does it impact does it have on us if we are the creator? I don't believe we just create for others. I also think we create for ourselves, but I also don't think we just create for ourselves. I think most creators and creative types like to create for others to see their work. And obviously, that comes with a lot of vulnerability and exposure to self and putting parts of ourselves out into the time and space of the real world for others to see. And that can be daunting. And unfortunately, I feel that oftentimes and too many times, people have forgotten how awesome it is and how wonderful it is to create because they're afraid to create. There's a fear around creating and not only creating, but putting that creative journey out for others to enjoy it and to feel it and experience it as well. And why? Because we live in times and in a world in which people want to judge your work. They want to poke holes in your creative pursuits. They want to find faults with what's creative and what's not. And the thing about creativity, though, is creativity defies all of that. There's no objective measure for creativity. There's no objective measure for beauty when it comes to art. And a whole gamut and spectrum of a lot of other things, may I add. But our world, and specifically maybe more our smaller minds, want to try to compartmentalize and reduce something like creativity into this neat little packaged box, one like you might get from Amazon or something. And we try to make it into some sort of like, well, here it is. Here's a Hallmark card. Here's a little, picture that you can hang up on your wall with live, laugh, love on it, as if that's some sort of wonderful thing. And hey, maybe it is. And I'm not trying to poo-poo that. All I'm saying is we got to expand our minds. Hi, I'm Mr. Fox. Thanks for joining me today. I really do appreciate you finding me, and I hope you come back. So if you want to come back and you enjoyed what you heard today, please hit that like and subscribe button. I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again. Yeah, we got to expand our minds. We got to continue to expand our minds when it comes to creativity. Make no mistake about it. That's for you, that's for me, that's for all of us. I mean, I think this is urgent, especially with the world that we're living in, where so much seems unreal. Everything seems AI generated. All these different changes, all the stuff that's going on in the landscape of our current state and reality is just, it's a lot to consume. It's a lot to take in. And I see so much content on YouTube and in the news just about, you know, what's the landscape of our world anymore? What's with all these changes and how can we make sense of it all? How do we remain us? Well, I think one of the biggest and most crucial points of maintaining our humanness is to be creative. So think back. Curiosity, right? In one of my previous videos, I talked about curiosity and embracing the unknown and being inquisitive in an empathetic way and maintaining that, maintaining a certain critical edge to the landscape of your thoughts and how you think about the world, how you observe the world. Well, let's factor in creativity here. Let's speak to creativity, and we might come around to the other things I just mentioned. The thing about creativity is it doesn't need to be perfect. It's not desiring perfection at all. And that's why it transcends the value that we want to try to place on it as a commodity and as a potential capitalistic monetization kind of pursuit. It's beyond a dollar sign. It's not for sale necessarily. And it wasn't made predominantly, generally, to make money. Are there people that create things for the sole purpose of making money, of producing and, production and all that? Yeah, there are. Absolutely, there are. And there might be a place and time for that. I can see that. But I'm talking about the kind of creativity that is driven from the soul. that comes from a deeper part of who we are. It's that voice within us that just needs to say something, do something, make something, use our hands, use our words, write our words down, get our voices out there, get our spirit out into the world and out into reality. So many of us, I think, feel unheard and feel as if our voices aren't acknowledged, aren't paid attention to. It's as if we're not there. And one of the aspects of creativity that I think is so fascinating and so gravitating is the fact that I do think it has the potential and even the power, I think, to connect people, to bring people together, to galvanize community and share interests. And it reminds us that we're human. So creativity isn't about perfection. It isn't about making money. It's about bringing people together. And it's not about me, the creator, or you, the creator. It's about us. We make things for ourselves, but we also create things for others as well. It's a both and here. So, creativity also doesn't mean or it doesn't imply acceptance. That's the great thing about it. Because it's not really held to specific, actual, objective standards, and because it defies those things and those kinds of measurements that we like to put on things, that makes it transcendent, it makes it beautiful, and it makes it so uniquely charged with principles of healing energy that we need. I don't need you to accept something that I make and create for it to feel right to me. I don't need it to be considered beautiful or amazing or immaculate or pristine or any of those, you know, adjectives you want to attach to it. It doesn't need to be good enough to hang on a wall. You know, I'm not going to go to an art gala and hang it on the wall necessarily, but does it touch me? Does it consume me? Does it say something that I felt needed to be said or that you needed to be said? So creativity comes from the heart. It comes from the soul. And I don't believe you can monetize things that come from heart and things that come from soul. Because creativity is oftentimes truly something that can't be expressed neatly. It can't be neatly put into qualifications or quantifications. So because it doesn't need to be accepted, that makes it powerful. That makes it beyond the realm of everyday life and living. That's why it can be so healing in so many ways. When we make the choice and if we choose to create, we are not just doing something for ourselves, we're doing something for others too. And also because it doesn't require understanding. Let me back that up. Because it doesn't require acceptance, it also doesn't necessarily require understanding. If I read a poem and it's kind of a, you know, it's words put on paper that don't make sense in the traditional way of making sense, or it doesn't read like perfect sentence structure, perfect grammar, you get the picture. Not everything is put together as is would be in a normal written format, a document. Writing poetry, writing haikus, and just throwing words on paper First of all, it's one of the best things that we can do. You don't have to be a writer to do this. You don't have to be, you know, an amazing poet to do this kind of stuff. Just throwing words on paper in a free association kind of way can be so helpful, so relieving, and just so nourishing and so it's hard to put it into words even. It's kind of ineffable what I'm trying to get at. And so creativity doesn't require acceptance, thus it doesn't require understanding. So if it doesn't make sense, so what? Is what I'm getting at. It doesn't need to. It doesn't have to. And I think because it doesn't make sense, and because it was created by someone, and it came from somebody, it's actually more real and makes more sense because it doesn't make sense. Because when you think about us, and you think about life, and you think about human nature, and you think about all this stuff that we call reality, what does make sense? I mean, really, especially right now in our world, what makes sense? What's real? What's true? I think we're all kind of searching for that. We're seeking that out. And so creativity is more human, more real, and it's even more real when it doesn't make sense because it's not supposed to. Art doesn't make sense 99% of the time. And it doesn't need to. It truly doesn't require acceptance and understanding. Don't believe me? That's okay. Even that makes sense. Because why should you? Well, I would hope that you might take a little solace in my words. But how often have you heard it said, or have you seen it with your own eyes maybe, that the greatest pieces of art and creativity are oftentimes things that make no sense, that are constructed out of random objects, random materials, things that don't go together, things that on paper don't feel like they even should coexist together, and yet they do. And then when we look at ourselves, I mean, human nature, humans are creative. We're creators, sure, but we ourselves were created. And think about all the things that don't make sense and all the things that had to come together biologically and all the different anatomical things that had to happen miraculously and had to work, right? Had to go through, had to, come together, if you will. And yet here we are, creations from others, creations from the divine. So it makes sense that creativity speaks to us as an outlet, as a source. And it's time we get back to that. Because I think right now, with the precipice of things in life as is currently standing in our world, and y'all know what I'm talking about, but I try to avoid these things. I think we can't afford to not look at these things and talk about these things. And if we can't talk about these things, or we can't feel as if we're heard and that our voices are heard, and when we don't feel like there's anywhere else for us to turn, I do think one of the things that we can do is get back to being creative. So what do we have to do? Where do we start with that? Well, we start with sitting with ourselves, with getting comfortable with being with ourselves. And we ask ourselves in a very real way, what is it that speaks to me? How do I express this the best way that I can? How do I get this out of me? There's something lingering within me that desperately wants to be heard and wants to be voiced. And so, what am I good at? What am I good at that requires all my faculties. Don't limit yourself. Creatives and imaginative individuals generally and oftentimes let go of this idea of putting limitations on themselves. They try things out. They throw, as the old expression goes, they throw shit at the wall and see if any of it sticks. And sometimes we have to throw some shit at the wall to see if it sticks. And that can be uncomfortable. That can be, unsettling, especially if we're not apt to do that, or we're not individuals who have really explored this creative side of themselves yet. And if this is really true new territory and we've never done it before, then yeah, it's going to feel a little weird to try things out and to do things that cut against the grain of who we've been. But I'm telling you, it's there. You just got to try it. And let me tell you why. And let me put this in plain language towards myself. I right now am cutting my teeth on becoming a YouTube creator, a content creator. I am still learning the ropes. I am still learning how to speak to a camera, how to have the right backdrop, how to make it engaging, get retention, get views. You know the whole deal, right? I'm learning what it is to be a content creator on this platform. And so I am learning a lot very quickly, and it's a little bit overwhelming, but I'm also up for it. And a part of me even enjoys the challenge of it, because I do feel like this has allowed me to try something that utilizes a lot of different aspects of myself that I've always wanted to utilize and accentuate and really extrapolate from myself. I like to talk a little bit. I like to engage in things that are interesting and that I'm passionate about, like anybody else. I feel like I do have some things that I think others might benefit from or value from, just like anybody else. And I'm learning as I go here. And so it's a little bit intimidating. It's a little bit fearful for me each time to get in front of the camera and to do this, because part of me is making it up as I go. But the point is I am creating, number one. Number two, I am uncomfortable. But number three, I'm saying, what the heck, I'm going for it. Because why not? Why not do this? Why not do it now? I have been talking about it for a long time, and it's only really within the last month or so that I have pursued this. And so I sit here as I talk to you today in a moment of truth and absolute honesty, and I say to you, if I can do it, you can do it too. And I'm not just talking about making YouTube videos and becoming a content creator. I'm talking about anything. Anything. Life is too short to not be who you are. And it's also too short to not create. You can feel it within you. You can sense it. It's there. And so it's time, as it is always the right time, to create. But the world pulls us away, doesn't it? There's a lot of things that we got to do: the upkeep, the business of life, work, family, obligations, bills, etc., etc., etc. There are things that take us away from the joy and maybe the opportunities of creativity and the creative pursuits. Creativity does take some time. It takes a little bit of planning and preparation. Certainly it takes the desire and the want, and even to some extent the know-how, but it really takes the true desire from within to carve out and make time and space for it. And I'm convinced that if you really have something within you that wants to be said, that wants to be put out there, or that you feel needs to be put out there and said, then you make time for it, that you do it. And I think when we're into our creative self, what happens and what comes out of that happens and comes out of that. We make room for what we're passionate about, what we care about, what means something to us, what matters to us. And I think that all holds true for creativity. And when that light is turned on, there's no turning that off. I mean, that's that itch that needs to be scratched. And who knows? Who knows? Who knows what you can do with it, or who knows what it's about? But it's something that's within you. And you feel it, and I feel it too. And so I'm going to carry on with all this. I'm just getting started, and I'm really starting to have a lot of fun with this. So we'll see where it goes. But with that being said, I don't place expectations on creativity either. I think we got to remove expectations, or at least expectations in terms of how we think about it. We've got to get comfortable with the idea that something might come out differently than what we thought it would. And that's okay. I say get in, dive in, really get into it, explore it, unpack it. Do what you need to do, but get up close with your creative side. Because it's speaking to you, it's saying something to you, and I think it's trying to get through to you about something that you need to recognize or become aware of from deep within yourself. And this exists within all of us. This exists within all of us. It's there for a reason. It really is. And so the more unreal the world is, and the more unreal the world becomes, that's when it becomes even more important for us to dive into this creative side of who we are. So, the reminder is, with creativity, that we need to come to know ourselves more, and that we should get to know ourselves better and more deeply. With creativity, we feel ourselves more alive. There's something in us that's eating at us, that's getting at us, that just is gnawing away at our souls, that's saying, no, like, I need to be acknowledged. I'm within you. I need to be heard, to be witnessed. And as I say that, I have my handy dandy production assistant, Mr. Anthony, say hello. Right there. There he is. This is my production analyst. And didn't expect him to be a part of this video today, but here he is, and I'm all for it. So just bear with me as I have a tail wagging across my face. Again, creativity doesn't need to be perfect. It's better when it's not. It's better when it's not. It doesn't even hint at perfection. Because, sometimes it just needs to be. So let it be. Don't be afraid of it. Go towards it. Creativity comes through us. It pours into us from somewhere. And I don't think that somewhere is just all us. I've already touched on that. But it's that kind of thing that grabs our attention. And once it has a hold of us, it has a hold of us. And we're kind of almost helpless at that point because it is in the driver's seat. It's in control. And even though creativity itself is uncontrollable, it sort of almost possesses us and takes control of us because it wants to be acknowledged. It wants to be heard. It wants to be felt. And it even needs to be felt. So when we're swimming around in uncertainty and anxiety and stress, and we're going through something, a crisis, a trauma, grief, any kind of pain, psychological suffering, situations, problems that arise, we turn to things, don't we? We try to find things that alleviate that assuage those pains and those struggles and those challenges. We turn to things. We all kind of know what those are. But I say to you, or I challenge you, why not turn to creativity? Here's why. Creativity helps us puzzle through things. Just the process, not the product, not the finish line, not the finished product, but the process of creating and creation helps us puzzle things and put things together. It helps us sort of grab things and remind us of things that we were maybe blind to or that we were unaware of, and it helps us to integrate those things into our whole self. And as I've hinted at in other videos, and I will continue to hint upon in videos to come, and especially right now, the journey of life is a life of learning to become more whole along the way, to become more integrated, to learn about ourselves and put things together about ourselves that don't make sense, that maybe we don't want to look at, that are very difficult to closely examine and hold right up to our faces. When we're doing that kind of integrative work with ourselves, creativity can expand that and open that even more. And what comes out of that is something amazing if we go far enough with it and if we allow ourselves to get comfortable with this thing called creativity. Because then we can have realizations. The process of creativity is such that it allows for realizations of puzzling things together, of exploring, of getting on beyond the usual parameters of what we call life. Because creativity transcends time, space, reason, logic, the ways of the world, you get the picture, it then can help us transcend our stuff, at least for a little bit. But in the process, uniquely enough, in the process of transcending our stuff, it actually helps us gain more perspective on our stuff. The things that we were in denial of, the things that we have been avoiding, the things that we have been throwing back in our closet. At its best, creativity can help us out of our stuff. It can help us out of our mental health issues and problems. It can help us process and reintegrate or integrate things about ourselves that we have been disowning and have maybe been dishonest with about ourselves. It can help us become more enlightened, more honest, more real, and more authentic with ourselves in ways that we have never been. In short, we get to become more of ourselves through the pursuits of creativity. And it allows for that. It's a helping hand. Creativity is fun, and it should be fun at some point. But it's a mirror. And at times it might ask us to become uncomfortable. But if you've heard me before, you know that I'm a believer that to grow and to become actualized and to become more whole, we have to endure things at times in life that require discomfort, that make us uncomfortable. And even if we don't actively seek out situations in which discomfort and uncomfortability are recognizable, those things that we don't want to recognize will at some point become recognizable, meaning they show up. They will show up. So whatever we're unwilling to acknowledge about ourselves comes through. I've said this in other videos as well. And I've realized some things already about this journey, this process of creating. But the funny thing is I'm not done yet. And I'm willing to continue. And I'm going to continue. As should you. So now's the time. Now's the time, my friends. Go out there and create something. And don't do it for anybody else but you. Do it because you want to have fun. Do it because why not? What else are you going to do? There is so many extraordinary things in this world. So many extraordinary moments, sequences. It's all around us. You have it in you. I have it in myself. And you are capable of moving mountains with your creativity, even if that mountain that moved is only yourself. Do it for yourself. Do it for the world. Do it for others if you will. Now is the time. You have the capability and you have everything you need to be a creative person. You need nobody's approval, nobody's acceptance. It doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to be understood. We, the world, need your creativity in whatever capacity that looks like. You choose. The time is now. I'll be back around some other time. I'm your host, Mr. Fox. Be well and take care.